So I'll start actually. We are already a couple of minutes into the meeting. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. Very, very excited to talk about some of the strategies for safeguarding and evolving digital landscape. What it basically means is cybersecurity is very complex right now with thousands of tools, millions of things people have to look into, regulatory stuff, threat actors around the world. And I just thought it would be good to talk about how to navigate it, think through the simplicity of where you can start with and build your program from ground up. So that's what I'm going to talk about. It is not enough to have half an hour, but I'll try to cram in some stuff and hopefully give you some food for thought, and happy to connect later on to have more conversation. Okay. Okay, it did go through. Okay. So who am I? My name is Ashish Garg. I live here in San Francisco Bay Area. I've been in cybersecurity for more than 20 years at this point. I have built security programs for Fortune 500 companies as well as very early stage companies that needed to have a security strategy, basic program building, and general help understanding the complexity of compliance and user awareness. I'm currently advisor to multiple startups and VCs on their security strategy across the globe, from Asia to Europe to United States and Canada. I have a PhD in computer science, and I hold multiple patents in cybersecurity, some certifications like CISM and others, and multiple publications over the years I've published. I'm a huge, huge proponent of democratizing cybersecurity, and we'll talk more about it later on. But I do think more people adopting cybersecurity best practices, understanding what it means to secure ourselves, our perimeter, our environment, data, application, and infrastructure, the better off everybody is. So just improving a little bit of that baseline for everybody is what I really, really believe in. I love to help people understand cybersecurity, from elementary schools, middle schoolers to college students to people who just graduated and trying to find their footing in the cybersecurity domain. I love to talk to them. I love to work with them. So that's who I am. And I'll go ahead with, it's a little slow to, okay. Ah, okay. Let me see if I can do it from my side. Okay, so why cybersecurity? Why does any company need to worry about cybersecurity? And that's a very um, basic question we should all be asking. If a mom and shop is selling everything physical goods and they are doing the physical leisure, they don't need to worry about cybersecurity, right? But people who have any data on their in their environment, they are interacting digitally today using application stack, cloud, infrastructure. They have to worry about cybersecurity. Primarily, there are three reasons for that. One is the GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. So you have a business in a certain geographic location. The government, the regulators want you to comply to certain things, in terms of protecting customers' data, in terms of protecting your own assets, connecting with customers, right? Uh, One big part of that is the risk management, understanding the risk to your environment, right? What does it mean? It means that if you get breached, what is the implication to your business or to your customers who rely on you? A big deal, the second big piece used to be business continuity or availability of infrastructure, but I think it's shifting more towards resiliency. So the integrity of your environment from prevention perspective, detecting any kind of attacks, and containment. Even if you get breached, how are you able to contain that attack into a smaller environment and not have a bigger impact in your base for your business? And the third thing that used to be and still as a big deal is brand reputation. You get a breach, people don't trust your environment anymore. Target had a breach. Every company is having some breach. But that is becoming less and less of a driving factor for cybersecurity because we are somehow getting a little bit immune to breaches. It happens, everybody's getting breached, everybody's PI data is everywhere, and we kind of stop thinking about it. But it's less in terms of deterministic criteria, but it is still an important factor to remember. Now, going very, very basic, the core principles of cybersecurity started with the CIA, typical CIA triangle, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which is what I talked about in terms of availability, going more on resilience side, integrity more on data. Can your customers and you rely on the data that is in your environment? Your infrastructure is, not tampered with, and confidentiality. People who need access or should have access to are the only ones having that access, and nobody else should have access. So what does it really mean in terms of building a security program, right? So NIST came up with defense in depth, which I'm going to show next, which kind of talks about layered approach to protect your environment. And I'm talking from business perspective, enterprise perspective, um, to build a program. And this is how it kind of looks like. I took it from the image that I thought represented it really well. So you start with policy on the left side, build policies based on the risk your environment has, the domain you are in, the regulatory compliance you have to follow. You build a lot of this engineering infrastructure from data in the middle to the layer on the application side, the endpoint security side, network side, perimeter side, right? And then after you build all these, you kind of start monitoring and responding to any kind of threats and attacks in your environment. So these individual items you see here are actually individual products most of the time. Sometimes it could be a combination of products, a combination of features in one product, but more likely than not, some of these are individual products or individual items may need multiple products. So that changes the dynamic of how complex it can get. Thinking through from policy perspective, building those out, building the processes out, monitoring and responding. And when you identify some things during your monitoring and responding, an incident happens, you have to go back and update your policy. Maybe your policy is not strong enough to protect your environment, or maybe some of the implementations you have done are lacking and they need to be revisited, re-architected. So once you do that, this is how typically a threat protection or defense in depth looks like with all the layers. Does every company need all of these? Maybe not. But this is a good framework to look into, and it's very strong framework if you're able to build all those out, have the policies and processes, have people to monitor and respond to them, you will have a good security posture. You will have a good program that you can be proud of to present to your board, show them the matrix of the maturity, how many attacks you were able to protect from, how are you helping the business run smoothly. Going to the next one. So I wanted to not scare, but kind of bring what actually is happening in cybersecurity right now. And this is more recent data that I could write 20 more bullet points here, but I thought these kind of reflect quite a bit of common um, problems with cybersecurity posture right now, right? So 80% of security breaches are caused by human error, right? It's a given. Um, it's not it's not the computers that making mistake, it's the human. That's the weakest link, right? A lot of ransomware attacks that happened recently in last 2 years were because of some kind of social engineering. Somebody got somebody's password, they were able to laterally move to a different environment, escalate the privileges, do more damage, right? Western Digital breach or the ransomware attack kind of comes into mind, right? For that, 60% of organizations have security awareness programs, but only 20% have a clear security strategy. So building a program versus having a vision, building a program and maturing it are very different things, right? Program building is good, but not effective if it doesn't take into account what is your security strategy, what does your business need, what are the threats you're trying to protect from. So very, very important to understand that that's lacking right now. 70% of security professionals feel overwhelmed by the number of security tools. I'm going to say more than 70% do, but this research says 70%. The number of tools we have, and I'm going to talk about it, maybe let me just move to the next slide. It's just insane. So there are 6,000 plus. I may be mistaken here. There may be more than that, but 6,000 plus cybersecurity companies around the world right now. You have to choose the cybersecurity products from these most of the time, right? You have to make sure they are working together. So you buy a product from one vendor to the other, you're able to monitor them and they can play together with each other, right? There used to be 25 or so tools minimum enterprise wide. I have seen some of the enterprises being able to, or smaller enterprises being able to do it with just 10, right? Because the features have enhanced, the tools are doing more than what they used to do. But it can go up to 75. It can go even more than that, depending on the size of the organization. There are 15 or so major compliance regulations, but when you add all the policies and all the frameworks that are available to comply, they go in thousands, right? Minimum 10 to 20,000 is what I can see. Even if you look at just NIST framework and try to build all controls, you're talking about more than 1,000 controls for one enterprise. Security team size goes from 5 to 50. If you are JP Morgan Chase, I'm sure it goes in thousands, right? A lot of big organizations, but most of the time, even a smaller size team will be 5 to 50 people. Okay, so I wanted to I put some effort into this. I thought, okay, how do you see the actual attacker type and the security posture maturity you will probably need, right? So I started looking into it. I talked to a couple of my friends. I said, okay, how do I represent the actual threat and how it translates to an enterprise and to what the posture should look like? So nation states, right? We know certain countries, they have the adversary mindset. They do attack other states. The capability is very high. They are very well funded by the government or those threat actors. They're very, very well funded. The frequency is low. You won't see countries attacking other countries, cyber espionage kind of thing that often. Frequency is low, but the capability is extremely high. The motivation is, of course, there's political, economic, right? Uh, Most of the time on a cybersecurity side, the posture for enterprises is very, very, it's really out of scope. It's more on the government side, right? So we can't do that. But as you keep going down to the organized crime, activist groups, the capabilities are reducing because they don't have as much funding, but the frequency can be increasing. It could be, they're just trying out different enterprises, different smaller companies, different targeted individuals, a lot of political and financial motivations, right? I mean, a fintech would get attacked mainly for the money they are transacting, um, things of that nature. Uh, the posture has to be good for financially motivated because every breach is going to cost you quite a bit of money, right? It's financial gain that they have. But when you go to the insider threat part, somebody is disgruntled employed, they got fired and they want to kind of do the payback and all that. Their capabilities are very low, right? The frequency could be high because you have a constant churn and people are probably not happy with it. Lot of this could be a good offboarding, so they don't have access to the environment could help quite a bit. Monitoring better before they get a notice and they are asked to leave, for example, in case of a layoff. And then you have some opportunistic kiddies like uh, teenagers, right? 14, 15-year-old. They don't know what they're actually doing. They don't know the legal repercussions of what they are doing. So they have no capability, right? They are just running on whatever computer or device they have access to. Frequency could be high. They can just keep they're throwing these things and expecting something to stick. It could be bragging right for them to with their friends or the chat groups they are part of, or it could be financial. They're able to figure out something, in a financial system to get in and do some damage or get some money out or transfer. Posture has to be good because you are constantly uh, finding these nagging problems. People are trying to do some kind of attacks from all sorts of weaknesses in your system, exploitations through that. And you have to just make sure you build a good posture there. Moving to the Next one. So how will you evaluate the landscape, right? What actually is the hype? So I gave you thousands of device tools available, thousands of regulations, hundreds of people, all that is there, right? You may not have in a budget. So how will you look into it? So I came up with this triangle kind of thing. I thought that represents it really well. So here is what I would recommend. You focus on what matters most. Cybersecurity stands to be a supporting function to the business, right? It needs to protect the business, it needs to protect the people, it needs to protect the data, right? So you have to focus what matters most. So that has to be highest on your radar, right? uh, what do we really need to build? We don't need to boil the ocean. We don't need to solve world hunger problem. We just need to make sure business needs to protect data because they are using data for the business. It is there's sensitivity involved. There is compliance involved. That becomes your focus, right? Identity, access management, right? Who can access my environment? So just make sure you focus on those things. Avoid the trap of shiny tools. So that should be down. You have to be really grounded in the reality that tools don't solve all the problems. A good strategy, a great business alignment, and effective uses of your resources, whether it is money, people, or process, you have to really avoid that trap that you don't want to buy multiple tools that don't solve purpose, and they actually create a lot of problems in managing, monitoring, and then they keep increasing the cost of maintaining your security posture. um, Always go left. Basically, keep looping around and figure out what is the risk in your environment, and risk is constantly evolving. Is the risk that you had yesterday still the highest risk? If not, go back to the whiteboard, right? Figure out what you need to prioritize from perspective of your product selection, from your monitoring, from your board reporting, from your awareness perspective to the employees. You have to keep evaluating that. So I thought this kind of gives a very high level overview of how you should start thinking, and then you can go deep into individuals, start building the program, understand the strategy, keep communicating it better, and then it just makes your life easier that way. Um, so how will you, what is the strategy you'll do? So you looked at, you focused on what matters the most, you figured out the risk, you went back and figured out, you said, okay, I'm not going to look at every tool needed, but I know what tools I will be looking at. What if you already have some tools in your environment and you're trying to add to it, right? You have to figure out, so I don't know if there's a poll or not, but I would love to see if I have these four options, will you be able to pick one and say, okay, this kind of start as a good starter, I will stick to that, and then I'll have to move on to that, to the next one? And the answer is maybe you can start it, but all four are very important, right? You have to consolidate your tool and platform for multiple reasons. One is um, tool sprawl is going to create a major problem. You will never have enough number of people to monitor and manage your security program. That means it will remain weak. You will have vulnerabilities in your own tools and integrations that you won't be able to monitor. So you have to do that. You have to have specific tools for specific jobs, targeting your risk and being able to give you enough maturity, enough clarity, visibility in your environment. Automation. I mean, uh, we have AI now. We are talking about a lot of companies trying to build AI tools for threat detection, for automating the security operations center functions, the L1, L2 support, correlating data automatically so you have less stress on your analysts that are looking at that screen with thousands of alerts floating in front of their eyes all the time. So you have to figure out a way to automate. You have to figure out a way to reduce the number of alerts you are getting, get better quality alerts, have the context around each alert to understand what is becoming a bigger deal, and you need to focus human intervention versus something that need to go in your risk register, go back to fixing that problem later on, but it's not an immediate threat for you. Upskilling and cross training. Security is everybody's problem, right? It's not the CISO or his directs that need to worry about security, right? Everybody has to understand, the person who's writing the code, the person who's picking the phone on the front desk. Everybody needs to know, because that's where the attacks can come. The social engineering attacks come from the executive assistant or the front desk, right? A lot of vulnerabilities in your programming, right? People write code, they are leaving some vulnerabilities, they get exploited. So you have to make sure people are upskilled, not just technically, but in terms of awareness. Cross-training, people should know, okay, cybersecurity, programming, front desk, awareness, legality of things they are doing, right? A lot of privacy related regulation. So that cross-training can help quite a bit to manage your cybersecurity posture there. Continuous compliance monitoring, right? Compliance is a big risk for a lot of organization, especially if you are regulated, fintech, pharma. So you have to make sure you're not slipping your compliance while you are doing other things and trying to reduce your tool sprawl. You're reducing the number of alerts. So extremely important to that. Um, So I took an example that I thought would be very, very useful to distill all that I have talked about so far and say, okay, how will you build a very simple cybersecurity posture? And a lot of companies, just by doing this, are so much better than companies that don't have any security posture. So you always want to do risk assessment, right? What is your security policy looking like, right? That means what does your business need? What do your regulators need? Fill that questionnaire, figure out what you need to do, identify the gaps that you have, right? And make sure they are front and center of what you do. Risk is becoming going to be your main anchor to hang on to, right? uh, Focus on basic hygiene practices, identity and access management. I cannot tell you that so many companies are relying on either suboptimal tools or no tool at all, just logging in from anywhere, multiple people logging in from different solutions. Individual solutions have their own identity providers, or tooling, and they just use that, and there's no way for them to figure out who has access to what at any time, who may be able to make more changes. And initially, when you're 5 people company, it's okay, but eventually you need to figure that out, right? You need to also train people. You need to build your privileged access management solution toolkit, right? Basically, what it means is only certain number of people in the organizations will have admin privileges or access to sensitive data or critical infrastructure. So, and that will have to be monitored well. They are trained for that, right? You have to take a training to say, okay, I understand the implications of privileged access management. I know I will be monitored and my sessions will be recorded, and you go from there. Implement security awareness training. So that comes from that IAM part, the privileged access management part I talked about, right? It also comes from the security policy. Right, people understand their password length should be certain, or we are not using passwords, so they need to use a multi-factor authentication. Their IAM policies are governed through some of the risk, right, that the environment has, and making sure everybody is aware of security maturity that the company would like to have. And simplify monitoring and incident response. You have endpoint detection and response tools like Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike, things of that nature that are able to control the end user devices, uh, get visibility to you on, and those logs can go to your SIM solution, which is security information and event management system like Splunk, Sentinel, Google Chronicle, um, to correlate those events, to understand, okay, what actually is going on in my environment. From I gave access to certain people, they know what access they should have and why they have that access. I have policies that are governing. Any non-compliance to policy will get flagged, right? And EDR has the set of policies inbuilt into that, or you build that policy engine with that. Um, but wait, you do 4 of these things, and what do you have? You have a SOC 2 type 2. You are SOC 2 type 2 compliant. You have a policy, set of policies. You have processes managing them. You have privileged access managed. You have identities access managed, and you're able to monitor and respond to incident. That really is what SOC 2 will be. And you have SOC 2 type 2 compliance report ready. You are in a much better shape than people who don't, because to sell to any Fortune 500, to talk to any regulatory body, a lot of times SOC 2 is kind of the basic minimum that you have to work with. So I just thought this gave a good example and gist of how you start from the business side, the risk side, build some practices, build the training and the monitoring and monitoring and incident response. So So what are the key takeaways for what I talked about, right? You have to focus on the fundamentals. It's okay to say that we need 50 tools, but you need to know where those tools actually fit into the picture of your organization, uh, what your organization actually. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Oh, okay, okay. Okay, sorry. So just understanding the fundamentals on the business side and what you are supposed to do, what budget you have, what resources you have, going from that. Simplify your tool set. You may need 3 or 4 tools, for example. You may need two. You may be able to use some of the cheaper tools in terms of that doesn't have all the bells and whistles and doesn't cost you arm and leg. That helps you harden it better. That helps you use the remaining money for other analysts, other tooling that you may need, because you will never have unlimited budget as a CISO, right? Or as a security practitioner. Prioritize risk management. Keep evaluating risk in your environment. What is a risk for you today may not be a risk tomorrow. What is not a risk today may become a risk tomorrow, right? So you have to keep evaluating. Remember that triangle, you keep going back to your whiteboard. Invest in people and processes. A lot of times it's not just the tooling, it's how your people understand how to use the tooling, how the processes are laid out. So there is no blame game happening. People understand their roles and their responsibilities. They're able to take care of what they're supposed to. And you will have a much better set of security programs than you have when you don't invest in them. They are not aware what to do. They're lost. They keep recommending new tools, or you keep buying new tools and nobody knows where does it fit in the bigger picture. Um, so that helps a lot. In summary, always, and I cannot stress it enough, you have to align with business needs. So security is not a function of its own, it's a supporting function to the business. So the more you align with business, if business needs certain security to sell more products, if business needs certain security to protect from threat actor, those are the things you need to look into, right? Not there's no state of the art or best practices across the industry. It's very specific to the business you are trying to protect. Understand the risks based on the business needs. Understand, okay, if the my business runs on data, my business is heavily regulated, what are my risks? And based on those risks, you build your program. Focus on today, because today's risks, like I said, will not be tomorrow's risk. And what you don't have as a risk today may become risk tomorrow. So every day you have to evaluate, not literally, but you have to build stuff for today, not for what you may need 5 years later. You will never be successful because your business will be very different in 5 years. It may not exist. It may become so big that there's no way for you to evaluate that from security standpoint. Never stop talking about security, right? It's everybody's responsibility. People should be tired of you talking about security awareness. You have to be an evangelist there, right? Uh, that's the best way to for people to say, okay, I get it, I understood it. They start repeating what you're saying. They start telling you what they understood, and that's a big win, because when things are in your mind, you adopt to it, you act on it, and that's only a good thing for the enterprise. Automate as much as you can. Automate things that are done well from automation perspective. Take away a lot of stress and fatigue from your analyst and you as a security practitioner, CISO, whatever level you are at. Um, and then you can focus more on the strategy than tactical. Otherwise, you're so deep down in tactical that you never have time to come back and think about what will happen in 6 months. Where should I be focusing from? Again, go to the threat and risk threat actors and risks. Business needs, they are evolving too. So you have to evolve your thinking and your strategy around it. Be brilliant at basics. You don't need to boil the ocean, but whatever you do from IAM, from EDR, from SIM solution, from risk perspective, awareness perspective, be very good at it. Be brilliant at it. So when you show any kind of measurements, you are making huge progress. Whatever you have accomplished so far, whatever is working extremely well. So that will help a lot. Do less with less. So we talk about you have to do more with more, and you can do less with less. So what more with less means that you have to accomplish more with less resources. I'm saying, yes, your resources are always going to be limited, but you don't need to do more. You can just do less. Less doesn't mean less than what you need. Less means less than what everybody else is saying, what the state of the art looks like. So you have to do what is good, what is the best fit for your enterprise according to the risk they have in the environment. And that's it. That's my time. Thank you so much. Happy to connect. This is my LinkedIn QR code. If you want to connect with me, happy to connect and have conversation offline as well. I love to talk to people. I love to learn from them. Uh, and this is by no means everything that you can do half an hour. Nobody can really build a security program, but this at least gives you an idea at a very high level of how to go about it. Each of these slides can be a full workshop where you can talk about things, discuss it, go in deep of tooling and monitoring and regulatory compliance and so many things. So I didn't talk about crisis situations, right? So a lot of that stuff could be built in there, but really appreciate everybody's time here. Any questions I can answer while we are here in the chat or anywhere? Okay, I'll stop sharing in that case and then stay on for a couple of more minutes. Uh, QR code, I think it should be. I can check. Is it not working? Oh, you are absolutely right. Let me just let me put my LinkedIn on the. Let me just put my LinkedIn in the chat. So sorry. Thank you so much for reminding. I should have checked it. I generated it a couple of weeks back, and I assumed it is correct. But okay, I'm putting my LinkedIn here. I just put my LinkedIn in the chat, so please use that. Sorry about that. I will fix it. All right.